Hi sisters, James Charles here and welcome back to our YouTube channel.
In April of this year, approximately 6 months ago now, James Charles was credibly accused of inappropriate behavior with minors. This is an increasingly common phenomenon where an influencer's misconduct flirts with illegality. And the question that keeps coming up for me is what have been the consequences for James? And more importantly, why hasn't it been enough? So let's do a quick recap. Earlier this year, multiple individuals came forward and accused James Charles of illicit activity. More specifically, it was young boys alleging that James Charles engaged in explicit conversations with them in both Snapchat and Instagram DM. The severity of these accusations has been questioned by James, but multiple boys have posted their accounts here on YouTube, which included screenshots and receipts of these conversations. And at the very least, and I think oftentimes forgotten, some of these conversations were confirmed from James's own admission.
Within the past couple of weeks, two different people, both under the age of 18, have recently come forward saying that they had inappropriate messages with me on social media. In both of these cases, I added these people on Snapchat, asked how old they were right away, was told that they were 18, believed them, engaged in a flirty conversation, and then later on found out that they were actually 16. Upon finding out,
James admits here to having engaged in flirty conversation with children. The use of the word flirty is, to me, insidiously underspecified. This lack of linguistic specificity might as well just be dishonesty. What he means to say is he engaged in sexually explicit conversations with, again, children. Neither framing is without sin. The idea of a grown man being flirtatious, even with 14-year-old or 16-year-old boys, is not only shocking, it's violently predatory, and naturally, the public outcry was immense. Morphe, the makeup brand with whom James released his highly successful palette, made a public statement cutting ties with James moving forward. Instant Influencer, a YouTube reality show that James founded as the host, removed him. YouTube also demonetized his channel for 3 months following these allegations, citing their community harm policies. By now, this demonetization has been lifted, and we've seen a return to his creation of online content, but this return sees him with 1.2 million less followers. At the peak of this scandal, he was losing approximately 10,000 followers per day, at least according to the Social Blade averages. With some personal scraping of the YouTube API, I looked into how exactly his current videos are performing. The highlighted gap indicates his absence while demonetized, and his return sees a fraction of the views from his two larger peaks in 2018 and 2020. In fact, the current view count looks closest to his metrics in 2017, which we might consider a setback in his career. That setback, though, still amounts to anywhere from 1 to 3 million views in a video. Those few million views still indicate a potential income of over $1 million a year. YouTubers have started collaborating with him again, and his like to dislike ratio is, by all intents and purposes, overwhelmingly positive. A finer question then begins to emerge. Is this his floor? Is this the greatest extent to which he can be held accountable? Why is that? Why is it that people are so willing to forgive and forget? I'm not the first person to ask that question, and I'm not sure that I have all the answers either. One thing that does nag at me, though, is our collective desensitization to the drama. James Charles specifically is no stranger to scandal. Whole journal articles by mainstream news sources have been written that chronologize his mistakes. As a central feature in YouTube drama really began with Dramageddon 1 and 2. In fact, the most popular video on his channel is No More Lies, a response to Tati Westbrook that has been viewed over 55 million times. That's a meaningless number until you realize that it's more than the entire population of Spain or South Korea. And in effect, that drama started over Tati's snake oil gummy hair vitamins. Entire countries are watching a response to an underlyingly ridiculous premise. How do we, as viewers, differentiate between the ridiculous and the real when the modality is exactly the same? We get drama videos and apology videos, and the fine-grained distinctions fade into the noise of an already parodic genre. We remember Laura Lee crying on her floor in front of a camera, but I don't really remember what that was about. As adults, it's clear that one is silly and one is serious, but the audience of James Charles is not composed of adults. That's actually kind of the whole problem. Young viewers won't see these situations for what they truly are, and until they do, their support for James won't waver. As a result, we're left with a predator and his 2 million average view count, a platform with uninhibited reach and, ultimately, insulation from any true consequences. At this point, there are more questions than answers. How do we hold someone so powerful, so successful, so wealthy accountable? What does accountability here even look like? We've seen people call for his deplatforming. There's no reason that this particular person deserves an audience when he's not to be trusted with members of that audience. But truthfully, the idea that YouTube would remove his channel is naive at best. So ultimately, what is enough for James Charles? Is the loss of a Morphe contract enough? The drop off in views? The additional constant public scrutiny? How do we, as a community, punish? Or, at the very least, how do we prevent further harm? How do we satiate this desire for him to face consequences? These are all questions that keep coming up for me, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll have answers to them, at least anytime soon. I'm 30. Thanks for listening.